Springfield Talk 1041. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Let's get our TV all set up over here. Yeah.
You leave and everything's
just falling apart here.
chaotic.
Got to get the monitors in the right place here. I want to thank everybody that filled in for me.
They did an awesome job.
That's what I heard.
Always.
Did a wonderful job.
How was your vacation?
It was nice.
Good. Did you do anything fun?
Yeah, actually. We went to, just briefly, so we can get into all the stuff people care about, a casino in Tulsa, which we're not gamblers. My wife will do a little tiny bit, but, we'll go to Kansas City for a few days, and a lot of times I like to stay at a casino just because they're cheaper.
Yeah.
The rooms are cheaper, and the food's sometimes cheaper, and, and, then it was like, well, the amount of time we're actually going to be gone, we wouldn't really have time to, I don't know, hang out in Kansas City. We'll just be in the casino. So we'll just go to downstream, hang out by the pool. But then I thought, we do that. So I just started searching around, and then I thought, well, we're at Tulsa. I don't think I've even been to Tulsa since I was in high school. And so I stumbled upon, doing my research, there was like a Hard Rock a casino, and then some others, and then there was River Spirit Casino that has like a Margaritaville, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, the only one in Oklahoma. I've never been to a Ruth's Chris. They had a Mazio's to go in the facility, and you know how I love my pizza.
I was gonna say,
I know.
That's what sold it for you.
And it had really great reviews and swimming pools and everything, and so we're like, okay, let's just do it. It'd be something different. And it was really, the staff there was incredible. The everyone was just so absolutely friendly. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, it definitely met, if not exceeded, my expectations. Being a restaurant that, a lot of people are aware of, but not everyone has gone to, and I just hadn't. And so we were just there for a couple days, but had a really great time.
Oh,
it was quite
good.
enjoyable. Yes.
Good. Well, and I'm happy that you're back.
Well, thank you very much.
Welcome.
All right. Well, where should we begin? This latest cycle of news regarding the Obama administration manufacturing false intelligence in order to frame Trump for colluding with Russia, all for the purposes of overturning the election, a coup. And this isn't anything that is a major revelation. This is known information, all right, to some degree. And we know this because of handwritten notes that James Comey took sitting in a meeting with initials of all the people that were there. And it was a meeting in which, during the election, and Obama was being briefed. This is when Clinton and Trump were running against one another. And in the Oval Office, Obama was briefed on the fact that the Hillary Clinton campaign had paid for a fake dossier in order to falsely accuse Trump of colluding with Russians and them having dirt on him. And this is the P tape that supposedly existed that, of course, didn't. All of these salacious things. And the reason Obama was being updated was because this was going to be a false allegation for the purposes of altering the outcome of the election by one of the two major presidential candidates, and it was going to be implicating a major world power. And so this was a heads up to Obama that, hey, this is not a good deal. Okay, so we want to give you a heads up that this is how far the Clinton campaign is going on this. So none of that is in dispute. Maybe ignored, but not in dispute. The one thing that I always, and I've said this since that information would become revealed over the years. At what point, when did it shift from, here's something that we need to be aware of that could have international implications because of a false allegation being made by the Hillary Clinton campaign against Donald Trump, to, hey, let's get in on this. Because it went from a warning to, hey, maybe we should also play along with this, false allegation. And what has been released by Tulsi Gabbard to some degree sheds light on that. And it was I believe, a meeting. It was after the election. And we'll get into some of this. We're going to play some of the audio of Tulsi Gabbard over the weekend. And there was this meeting on December 9th. This was after Trump won. Well, apparently, or arguably, that could very well have been the triggering moment that caused all of those people in Obama world, including Obama himself, to shift from, oh, we were warned about these false allegations, to let's lean into this, let's play on to this. And some of what Tulsi Gabbard has released is information regarding just that, and that Obama gave direction after Trump won the election to pretend as if this was real. And this is where there are calls to potentially prosecute Trump. By the way, have you seen the video Trump released, or he reposted? It's I don't know, a couple minutes in length, and the first half of it is Democrat after Democrat after Democrat saying no one is above the law. And then it goes to what is clearly like an AI-generated video of Trump and Obama in the Oval Office. You know, when he has those meetings he's in an armchair, and then another world leader is, and they're sort of sitting there casually talking, and Trump's laughing. And then you've got these two agents that come over and lean over, whisper something to Obama, and arrest him. And he's kind of fighting it a little bit. As I laughed out loud just because of the way that they generated it and made it look like he was trying to fight him a little bit, but not too much. And then YMCA starts to play, and then it ends with Obama sitting in a prison cell. Now, of course, what we can all expect is to hear that this is proof that Donald Trump is a dictator, when there is an actual real mugshot of Donald Trump because of Obama world, because of Biden world, because of the Democrats. And I know for intellectually honest people, this is incredibly frustrating to watch people on the left scream dictatorship at Trump for something that they have done themselves and celebrated. Except for they actually manufactured things, which is why a number of those cases were thrown out, particularly in Florida, because of the falsification of evidence, and tampering with evidence was one of the findings of the court down there as well. So as you can imagine, there's quite a bit to cover. We'll get the Tulsi Gabbard audio coming up. Is anyone actually going to be held accountable for this? I don't know. But you think about, these are people who said Trump should be in prison because he was colluding with Russia in order to, alter the outcome, to rig the election. When it was those people, it was Obama world, it was the Clappers and the Comeys and the Clinton, they were the ones who were actually doing that. So if you're an intellectually honest person, and you believed them when they claimed that Trump was trying to rig the elections, and that Trump should go to prison for that he was just a puppet of Putin, that it was all treason, you can't then honestly say that the people who actually were trying to rig the election should get away with it with no problem whatsoever. But most of you recognize that the true tyranny are those who believe they should be allowed to do those sorts of things because they're the good guys. We'll have weather coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. An extreme heat warning is in effect this week for the entire listening area. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 95. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 75. For your Tuesday, sunny and hot with a high near 96. And Wednesday it's going to be the same, sunny and hot with a high near 96.
Obama administration manufactured intelligence to create a 2016 Russian election interference narrative, documents show. And some of what the new revelations are, it regards the fact that under the Obama administration, the intelligence assessment was that Russia did not in any meaningful way interfere in our elections. There was one or more instances in which they tried to hack into like voter registration stuff for the purposes of getting people's personal information. ID theft, not for voting. It had nothing to do with the ability to cast votes as Russian agents, which is why the investigators during the Obama years said, "Hey, there's nothing here. I mean, there's no attack on our election system by the Russians." The brief stated that cyber criminals did try to steal some data of voters, but that had no bearing on people's votes and on the election. Now, this was apparently supposed to be published on December 9th of 2016. This is after Trump was elected president. But later communication revealed the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, based on new guidance, which we learned came from Obama, decided to push back publication of the presidential daily brief, saying it will not run tomorrow, and it is not likely to run until next week, wrote the Deputy Director of the Presidential Daily Brief at Office of the Director of National Intelligence, whose name is redacted. The meeting included top officials in the National Security Council: Clapper, then CIA Director John Brennan, then National Security Advisor Susan Rice, then Secretary of State John Kerry, then Attorney General Loretta Lynch, then Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, among others, to discuss Russia. The declassified meeting record obtained by Fox News Digital revealed the principals, those people, quote, agreed to recommend sanctioning of certain members of the Russian military intelligence and foreign intelligence chains of command responsible for cyber operations as a response to cyber activity that attempted to influence or interfere with U.S. elections if such activity meets the requirements. That from an executive order that demanded the blocking of property belonging to people engaged in cyber activities. After that meeting, according to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Clapper's executive assistants emailed intelligence community leaders telling them to create a new intelligence community assessment, quote, per the president's request, that detailed the tools Moscow used and actions it took to influence the 2016 election. So the timeline here is that the investigation was done. Obama was briefed on it and told there's nothing to see here. And then everyone was told, whoa, wait a minute here. Let's not release that report. Per executive order from Obama, we need to go back and redo this thing. Later, Obama officials would leak false statements to media outlets claiming that Russia had attempted through cyber means to interfere in, if not actively influence, the outcome of the election. By January 6, 2017, a new intelligence community assessment, because see, the other one didn't work so well. The new intelligence community assessment was released that, according to the Office of Director of National Intelligence, quote, directly contradicted the IC assessment that were made throughout the previous 6 months. So it's very clear what occurred here. 6-month investigation during the election. And you may even recall, I don't have the audio, but there was a point in which Obama, out there campaigning for Hillary Clinton, mocked the idea that anybody could interfere in our elections, downplaying it. And that, of course, was the assessment that the intelligence community, after 6 months of investigation, came to. The problem was, after they concluded that, Trump won. Oops, that wasn't expected, was it? Remember, was it the New York Times 98% chance that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election? That was the day of the election. See, none of these people expected Trump to win. The minute he did, they put a halt to the release of that investigation, declaring that there was no collusion, and per Obama, according to the released documents, they had to do a redo and find something, whatever it might be. Now, what does that mean? We'll play some audio from Tulsi Gabbard coming up. Former Democratic presidential candidate. Let's not forget that, by the way. You know, it is pretty interesting that some of the most, at this point, and you know, as the days, weeks, and years unfold, we'll see to what degree they are the most impactful appointments made during this administration, are both former Democrat presidential candidates, RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. Isn't that interesting? Seems pretty bipartisan to me. Well, you have a chance to win tickets to see Kane Brown at Thunder Ridge Saturday, July 26th. Text the word Brown, all one word. I'm glad that was specified. Don't turn that into two or more words.
You don't put spaces.
No spaces, no exclamation points, none of that stuff. It has to be exact. So text the word Brown.
All one word.
All one word to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 417-447-5743. All right, so let's get some audio and a couple of appearances over the last several days by DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, and this declassification of the December 26th presidential briefing, which revealed that Obama not only was involved in, but appears to have been the person that ordered the hoax to begin on a legal level. Up until then, it had just been what they knew was fake political information paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. But it was what this declassified briefing shows is that, and this is after Trump got elected president, they decided, well, let's activate this thing and let's play along and let's try to overturn the will of the American people, undo the election, overthrow the Trump presidency. And this is what is getting all the attention and talk of possible prosecution. Here is Gabbard talking about, and some of this audio is from Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo, and then some of it, I think one of the clips is on one of the other shows, maybe Hannity's show, but it's all in the context of what it is that has been revealed.
Now, you referenced this President's Daily Brief document that was drafted for President Obama in early December that reaffirmed what the intelligence community professionals, as you say, had been assessing for the previous 6 months leading up to the election, which was that Russia neither had the intent nor capability to essentially hack the outcome of the U.S. election. As you said, President Obama's political appointees pulled that document before it could be published, and it has not been published until we released it today. And the very next day after they pulled that document, President Obama called a National Security Council cabinet meeting to discuss how Russia interfered with the election. Again, this is the first
This
week
is
of December.
December 9th,
President
right?
Trump had already won. Correct.
This is the December 9th meeting.
That's exactly right. The December 9th meeting, we declassified and released what they call the summary of conclusions from that meeting. Then DNI James Clapper took the lead on what President Obama wanted done, and which was essentially create a document that tells us not if, but how Russia interfered with the election. President Obama delivered the conclusion that he wanted the intelligence community to reach and directed them to find and essentially create and manufacture the intelligence to support the conclusion that President Obama wanted to deliver to the American people. Once that document was drafted, the deep state kicked into gear and did what they usually do. They started leaking this classified information out to their friends at the Washington Post and others who are working hand in glove with the deep state to lay the groundwork for the assessment that they eventually released that served as the basis once again for this years-long coup with the goal of trying to subvert the American people's will and usurp President Trump from being able to deliver on the mandate that the American people gave to him when they chose to elect him as president of the United States.
All right, we'll play a couple of other bits of audio, but then I also want to bring back what a lot of people at the time thought was a very unusual and weird thing done by Susan Rice of the Obama administration, in which she wrote an email to herself. And the email that she wrote to herself on the last day of the Obama presidency was just kind of a reminder to her that Obama was like, now, this has to be by the book. You know, we've got to make sure that this is done for the interests of the United States of America. And for a lot of people, I happen to be one of those people, thought, this seems just a little too obvious. It was like a such a lazy and overt attempt to create an alibi for Obama that it almost got dismissed as this is just too weird. But in context, knowing what it is that we know today, what we have known for some time, you can see that this was really, to me, just a very clumsy attempt to try and create an alibi for Obama by saying, look, well, I wrote myself an email from that meeting, and in the email I talked about how Obama wanted everything done just by the book.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. An extreme heat warning is in effect this week for the entire listening area. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 95. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 75. And for your Tuesday and Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 96.
All right, two more bits of audio. Tulsi Gabbard is, and I'm sure she's going to be making the rounds throughout at least the early part of the week, and she has indicated, and I don't believe this has been done yet, that there are more documents yet to be released. Here she is yesterday morning, Fox News, further detailing some of what the newly released documents have indicated regarding Obama's part, if not direction, of attempting to overthrow the Trump administration by falsely accusing him of colluding with Russia to rig the election.
The implications of this are, frankly, nothing short of historic. Over 100 documents that we released on Friday really detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office, after President Trump had already gotten elected. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue that is so serious it should concern every single American, because it has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. What we saw occur here, as the documents we released detailed, was that we had a sitting president of the United States and his cabinet and leadership team, quite frankly, who were not happy with the fact that President Trump had won the election, that the American people had chosen Donald J. Trump to be the next president, commander-in-chief of the United States. And so they decided that they would do everything possible to try to undermine his ability to do what voters tasked President Trump to do. So creating this piece of manufactured intelligence that claims that Russia had helped Donald Trump get elected contradicted every other assessment that had been made previously in the months leading up to the election that said exactly the opposite, that Russia had neither the intent nor the capability to try to, quote unquote, hack the United States election for the presidency of the United States. So the effect of what President Obama and his senior national security team did was subvert the will of the American people, undermining our democratic republic, and enacting what would be essentially a years-long coup against President Trump, who was duly elected by the American people.
You know, sometimes you can get lost in the forest for the trees. And of course, as so many of us have recognized the irony of these people accusing Putin of doing what it was that they were actually doing. But even aside from just specifically trying to claim that Putin and Trump were colluding, and, you know, of course, Putin was fine. He was great until this new narrative came along. I mean, Obama, you may recall, mocked Mitt Romney, who was running against him, talking about the dangers of countries like China and Russia, saying that Cold War called. You know, they want their foreign policy back. He sent Hillary Clinton over there with that reset button because we had just been mean to poor old Putin all this time. We needed to reset relations. It wasn't until this disinformation campaign came about, they had to flip that narrative, and all of a sudden we are supposed to believe that any sort of interaction with Russia is bad. Any sort of interaction with Putin is bad. After being told for years we needed to be allies with those folks. But what they did is what people like Putin do. Rig elections. This is what corrupt regimes do. We talked about this a lot in the lead up to the election and how increasingly you have countries like Iran where the participation of voting diminishes cycle after cycle because people recognize that the people who are in charge ultimately they have the system rigged, and so what's the point? They're never going to let the choice of the people serve, and even if they do, they'll do something to get rid of them. And that's what we had under the Obama administration and post-Obama administration with the deep state. Now, will anyone be held accountable? That is the big question. Indictments, is any of that going to be in the future?
Do you believe that we will see prosecutions? I mean, our audience wants to know where this story goes from here. Will we ever see anyone held accountable for this incredible lie on the American people?
I will do all that I can, and we have whistleblowers, actually, Maria, coming forward now after we release these documents, because there are people who were around, who were working within the intelligence community at this time, who were so disgusted by what happened. We're starting to see some of them come out of the woodwork here because they, too, like you and I and the American people, want to see justice delivered. So we're going to provide everything that we have, everything that we will continue to gather to the Department of Justice for that direct intent and that direct purpose. There must be indictments, those responsible, no matter how powerful they are and were at that time, no matter who was involved in creating this treasonous conspiracy against the American people, they all must be held accountable.
So do you expect, just to be clear, do you expect indictments and prosecutions?
I'm not a lawyer. In my view, we have the evidence to be able to move forward and bring about justice, yes, to prosecute and indict those responsible.
Now, Gateway Pundit has a piece on this Susan Rice email from January 5th of 2017 that even at the time was considered to be weird because she emailed herself. And this wasn't an email yourself like, don't forget to pick up chicken on the way home tonight. Don't forget to send out invitations to the party. It wasn't that sort of thing. This was what is being called a CYA. Cover your backside. In February of 2018, Chuck Grassley posted to his official Senate website, Ambassador Rice appears to have used this email to document a January 5th, 2017 Oval Office meeting between President Obama, former FBI Director James Comey, and former Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates regarding Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. In particular, Ambassador Rice wrote the following. This is in an email to herself. President Obama began the conversation by stressing his continued commitment to ensuring that every aspect of this issue is handled by the intelligence and law enforcement communities by the book. The president stressed that he's not asking about, initiating, or instructing anything from a law enforcement perspective. He reiterated that our law enforcement team needs to proceed as it normally would by the book. Grassley said in a letter to Rice regarding her email to herself, it strikes us as odd. Among your activities in the final moments on the final day of the Obama administration, you would feel the need to send yourself such an unusual email purporting to document a conversation involving President Obama and his interactions with the FBI regarding the Trump-Russia investigation. In addition, despite your claim that President Obama repeatedly told Mr. Comey to proceed by the book, substantial questions have arisen about whether officials at the FBI, as well as at the Justice Department and the State Department, actually did proceed by the book. As juvenile as this may seem, I mean, intelligent people see something like this for what it is. And would she actually think that people are going to buy into this? That she just decided to randomly email herself in the final moments of the Obama administration, clearing Obama of any wrongdoing. Just did it for no reason whatsoever, just so she had her own little memento. Now, while you and I will look at this and say, who would possibly believe this? Unfortunately, we know who does believe this sort of thing. It's the same people who believe the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, the same people who believed that Joe Biden was perfectly fit intellectually, the same people who believed in the Russian hoax from the get-go. They'll believe anything they're told. And people like Susan Rice know that. So as embarrassingly transparent as an attempt like this is, it is something that will allow the authoritarians to say, no, look, Obama did things by the book. Susan Rice sent herself an email about it. Well, what we do know, what is not in dispute, is that the 6-month investigation found that there was no there, that there was no effective or even the means effectively to interfere in our elections by Russia. And Obama was given that report. And then there was the order not to release it. And then Obama told him to go back and redo it after Trump got elected. That's not really by the book. Well, it's by some book. Just not the one that the American people expect. There's one other aspect of this that I recall in the final hours of the Obama administration, and he had signed an executive order that allowed for a much less restrictive ability of people to share intelligence information, even cross departments. And it was noted as an odd thing to do on the way out because all that would do is make it easier for information to get leaked. Well, yeah, you kind of see how all this comes together. Not only did that executive order by Obama allow for the what we would see, the subsequent leaking of this fake information about Russian collusion, but when you give so many people access to the information, it makes it much more difficult to figure out who's leaking it. Do we really think that also in the final hours of the Obama administration was a mistake? Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Democrat Congressman Jim Hines, Connecticut, top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, in full-blown panic mode, demanding that Tulsi Gabbard stop releasing these documents exposing Obama's hand in directing, at least to some degree, the framing of Donald Trump in this Russian collusion hoax. I mean, of course. So much for transparency. These people are so patently obvious. He claims that it could put John Brennan's life in danger from MAGA mouth breathers. And listen, we know what's going to come. These people have no honesty in them. None. And here's the thing. They all know. This is all theater. They all know. This is, they get out there and feign some sort of righteous indignation that how dare you accuse the great Obama of doing anything like this? How dare you go after your see, we told you. They all know what happened. They may not know all of the exact details of how it played out. Part of the reason that the Democrats are going to push back on this One, obviously, because it doesn't look so good for him, but also because we're talking about hard evidence here. It was the Obama the 6-month investigation that was done by the intelligence community that declared that this was not some Trump administration declaring that there was no collusion. It was the Obama administration. That's not in dispute. That's the report that's been released. And then, after that, Trump got elected, and that's when Obama said, hold on a minute, why don't you do a redo on this? That's not in dispute. Susan Rice, perhaps ironically, proves in her weird email to herself that Obama directed the redo. You know, by the book this time. I guess the previous 6 months was corrupt, somehow done in a way to cover up from Putin. Is this what we're supposed to believe? It's one thing when you have the appearance of illegalities or improprieties going on, but this panic mode that some of these Democrats are in is because this is indisputable stuff. This was, the report's there. It's there. It exists. Springfield's Talk 1041. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. I spend a great deal of time telling you about the different incentives, different deals, credible opportunities at Pennegar Honda, but I just wanted to read to you what Craig had to say regarding his experience. Pennegar Honda, Springfield, first-class operation, efficient, friendly, professional customer service from everyone involved, from the sales lot all the way to the business office. Lem Wilson bent over backwards to get us the car that we wanted. He was never pushy, never tried to be slick or sleazy. This is a beautiful new facility, informative staff, great car purchasing experience all the way around, and that's what you get with the Pennegar family at any of the Pennegar locations, and Pennegar Honda specifically there. South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line regarding the recent revelations that the Obama administration, with Obama himself involved in it, telling the folks who investigated the Russian collusion hoax to go back and do it again after they found that there was no collusion. The text message reading, no one's going to be held accountable. Story will not resonate with the American people. For years, Dems have said Trump on January 6th was undermining the will of the people, saying even years earlier, Obama was undermining the will of the people, is like saying, I know you are, but what am I? Republicans go to jail, Democrats get books and lecture money. And that is what we have become accustomed to in this country, which I would argue again with each side pointing to the other, claiming authoritarianism. Which side is it that puts political opposition in prison while the other side gets book deals and gets paid 6 or 7 figures to have some honorary position at a university? We all know the answer to this question. We see it on a daily basis. And it's why that while this information coming to light is important, it is necessary, there are still many Americans who believe that if these folks on the left will get away with anything that they want. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. That's the website that you go to if you want a great home loan. There's a lot of other great information as well, including it's the 10 commandments when it comes to going through that process. Some of them are obvious. Well, I shouldn't say that. They're obvious to some. For example, after you have gotten that pre-approval, you don't want to then go out and get a car loan. You don't want to add it because that just throws a wrench into everything. And so some of those little hacks, if you will, life hacks, they make sense. But did you know that you also should not deposit during that period of time cash into your checking account that is out of line with what you normally deposit? So I sold that piece of junk car for $1,200. I'll put that in my checking account. That can throw up a red flag. So there are all sorts of things that you may do thinking you might even be helping yourself, but in fact it is quite harmful. That's where the characters, the team, they come in and they can help navigate you through that stuff to make it as easy as possible. They're like the guide, and they know where the troubled waters are. They know where it is that you need to go and not to go, but sometimes unforeseen things still pop up, and they are there to navigate you through that as well. For all of your home loan needs, refinancing, reverse mortgages, I want a great homeloan.com because you do. James Comey's daughter. You may remember James Comey, former FBI director. She has been fired from the Trump DOJ. And there's two ultimate reasons that are being cited here. One of which runs contrary to the narrative against Trump. One is P. Diddy, saying that she just jacked that whole thing up. That should have been an easy, no-brainer situation. And the reason, listen, frankly, I didn't follow the case close enough, and I'm not a legal expert, so I don't know how big of a bungling it was, but that is one of the reasons that is cited by the Department of Justice for letting her go. The other has to do with Epstein. And as you know, the Democrats have attempted to take the very poor handling publicly by the administration of this Epstein thing, unforced errors, and they've tried to use that in order to claim that Trump is implicated in all of this, and that's why he doesn't want it to come out. Now, of course, it doesn't make any sense for reasons that we've talked about 1,000 times over. Well, the second reason that they've given for letting her go is because she has argued in court for keeping some of the court documents in the Epstein case under seal. Claiming, well, Ghislaine, she's trying to appeal, and some of that information, if the public knows about it, it could damage our case against her. But the Trump administration is saying, no, that information needs to be released, and you have been blocking the public from seeing it. This, of course, it puts Democrats in somewhat of a difficult position because this is somebody that has a direct connection, the daughter of an individual that was part of a conspiracy to try to overthrow the Trump presidency. That's former director of the FBI, James Comey. So on one hand, they could come out and they could say, see, look at this. He's even going after the poor family members of his political opposition. But the response to that is, no, it's because she's trying to cover up for Epstein. Or not Epstein, but the other individuals that may be implicated in his crimes. And the Trump administration wants that information revealed. In fact, I think it was, maybe I didn't get the story printed off. It was maybe Thursday or Friday that the Department of Justice is pressing further through legal means to have that information released. And it makes it a little more difficult to try and defend James Comey's daughter when you are trying to create and reset this narrative that Trump is trying to cover up for Epstein and the people involved in Epstein, when she's the one that has tried to keep all of that stuff and argued that it should not be revealed to the public, and Trump is the one who is utilizing the legal means available to him or to the Justice Department in order to try and force that release to occur. We're going to get an update on the latest news, and then one of my, I don't know if it's, I want to say favorite subject matters, but it isn't really. It's just such an absurd, no-brainer. And it is this, it's almost as absurd as the Colbert stuff. We'll get to that coming up. But it's somewhat similar, this attitude of people on the left, that they have this sense of entitlement that they should not actually have to provide or produce results that make them self-sustaining. You know, Stephen Colbert, I just can't imagine being responsible for the hemorrhaging of the amount of money that guy's been responsible for over at CBS. $40 million a year they're losing because of him. And people on the left can't understand why he was taken off air? Or why he will be. You can't figure that math out? I love all of these people on the left. Oh, he's just one of the greatest at what he's so wonderful. Actually, he's apparently really, really bad at it because he's costing them $40 million a year. Like in the hole. I think they're paying him $16 million. Yeah, that whole thing. Again, we'll talk about it coming up. But it's the same sort of mentality, these people at NPR, PBS, that they're just entitled to not have to produce a product that is valuable enough to the community at large that they are self-sustained. The CEO of NPR, and this all has to do with the cutting of taxpayer funding. We're all at risk. The public, all of us are at risk now. Oh, yes. Because of the emergency alerting. Now, I don't know how many of you only are able to get, let's say, tornado warnings from NPR. All the radio stations do this sort of thing. This isn't something that only NPR, as much as they love to live in their own little world here. How will people know about severe weather? I would venture to say in most markets, 99+% of people don't get their severe weather warnings from NPR. I'm sure there are some that do, but there are plenty of other sources for that. Even if that were to somehow go away. Speaking of weather in a moment, also traffic right now, the latest news.
In the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. An extreme heat warning is in effect this week for the entire listening area. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 95. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 75. For your Tuesday and Wednesday, it's going to be sunny and hot with a high near 96.
Pyramid Roofing Company, talk a text line 447 KSGF. By the way, it is a Heroes Breakfast Friday, so we will, of course, be at Scramblers in addition to our regular hanging out doing the show there at Scramblers. There will be free breakfast for veterans. So that is 6 to 9 this Friday. Congressman Burleson joins us. And thank you, as always, for taking some time out to fill us in on some of what's going on and a lot of big items, particularly over the weekend, kicking off the weekend. And I think that one that has a lot of teeth to it is the releasing of these documents by Tulsi Gabbard showing that under the Obama administration, a 6-month investigation prior to the 2016 election results showed that there was no meaningful or even the means existing of the Russians to interfere in our election. That report was done, presented. Then Trump wins the election, and it appears as if Obama said, hey, let's have a redo on this. And that is what began the whole Russian collusion hoax, or that's what shifted it from a campaign tactic from the Hillary Clinton people to a deep state tactic to undermine and perhaps even overthrow the Trump administration. What's the buzz on this? Any thoughts on it? Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I noted that, of course, there's still a great deal of time in this administration, but arguably, at this point, two of the most impactful picks for Trump or by Trump were two former Democrat presidential nominees. That's Tulsi Gabbard and the other's RFK Jr. You remember when Obama first got elected and there was this whole gang of rival thing that they kept trying to compare him to Lincoln because he was willing to bring in Republicans, and they made such a deal gushing over it. Yet here Trump, you really truly have not just some wishy-washy Democrats, but two former presidential candidates that are so influential in his administration. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. We're talking with Congressman Burleson. It's been a couple weeks because I was, of course, on vacation last week and then gone the previous Monday. And so never really got a chance to get your thoughts, if you had any, regarding more so what I would say is the handling of this whole Epstein thing, unforced errors in terms of narrative, I would say. And it's just been one thing after another. I do believe that there's a messaging problem here that has occurred regarding exactly what a list is defined, and then you have people out there like Hurwitz that are saying, listen, there's not like this official list, but there are people there. Some of these are cases that have been sealed by judges, and that's something apparently that to some degree the Trump administration is going to try to undo. And in fact, one of the reasons they cited letting go of Comey out of the Department of Justice, because she was fighting to keep that stuff secret. Any insider thoughts on any of it? Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it too. I also think, though this isn't the point, but it is an educational moment when you note the difference between what would be the average Trump supporter versus the average like Democrat Biden supporter, in which, and both sides characterize one another in the same, the left cult members, the right cult members. But you look at when the Democrat voters were told Joe Biden's perfectly fine, and they just fall in line, even though it was clear he wasn't. Trump makes the comments he makes about Epstein, and you didn't have Trump supporters go, oh, okay, that's it. Okay, let's all move on. It was Trump supporters, I would argue, that has fueled the call for something to be done. And I think it really illustrates that Trump supporters aren't simply supporters of Trump, but they have they do have a moral compass, and when they feel as if that is not being served or expectations are not being served, they're the first ones to say, no, we're not letting this one go. And I think that that's a sign of a healthy culture of supporters.
Yeah, and that's guided by a compass, and what everyone understood was part of the political campaign and what the promises of that campaign were. So I agree. The fact that you've got Charlie Kirk and Benny Johnson and a lot of like DC Drano, a lot of the social media influencers and key political figures that have stood up. I think it's great.
Yeah,
I think it's really good. And look, another example is I had constituents in my office last week as I've kind of stuck my neck out, because the truth is, like, a discharge petition against your own party is kind of a taboo thing. But when it came down to this situation, when the Democrats they were putting forward their discharge petition, and the Democrats were putting forward amendment after amendment, I needed to come out and make a stand and take a stand. And that was, so myself and I think 7 other Republicans co-sponsored Thomas Massey's discharge petition to release all of these files. And that's not exactly a great place to be in. But I had these constituents in my office last week, and they were saying, good for you. And these constituents were wearing Trump hats, MAGA hats. And they look, the truth is, you can be for Trump and you can love Trump, but also say this should also be a priority to me. And so I think that you can have both opinions.
Well, and I think at the same time, and it isn't about Epstein. It's about all of the people that were purchasing his services. And I think that too often gets missed. And there's the conflating between whether he killed himself or he didn't. And everybody's going to have different priorities and interests. But to me, the bulk of this isn't about Epstein any longer. It's about all those individuals that were paying to rape underage girls. And that's why it's something that isn't done and over with, because those people are still walking around free.
Yeah, that's right. You are exactly right. It's not necessarily about getting justice for Epstein himself. It's also about this idea that does this government work for us?
Yeah.
Or is the deep state so deep that we're never going to get answers to even something as simple as this? And I think people kind of feel a little black-pilled about this.
Yeah, I agree. Congressman Burleson, any final thoughts this morning?
No, this is my final week before the August recess, and I'll be having lots of meetings back in the district for the next few weeks, and I am so looking forward to it.
I can only imagine. I know you prefer to be here. Congressman Burleson, safe travels, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Nick. You too.
All right, thanks. Springfield Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Now, if you make your way over to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, text the word Brown. That will enter you for a chance to win tickets to see Kane Brown at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena. That is coming up this Saturday. So, again, text the word Brown to the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 417-447-5743 for your chance to win tickets for that concert.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. An extreme heat warning is in effect this week for the entire listening area. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 95. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 75. And for your Tuesday and Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 96.
Want to just take a moment. Ozarks elder law. One of the areas in which they can be super helpful is when it comes to medical power of attorney. And here's the thing about medical power of attorney is when it gets to the point, particularly when you're talking about, perhaps dementia, Alzheimer's, things that affect judgment, by the time it becomes too late, it can be too late. Because this is the catch-22. If you are not mentally capable, if you are deemed not mentally capable of making decisions on your own, then you are not mentally capable to sign over that power of medical attorney for you. And so sooner than later is much better, I guess would be the message here. I think too often what happens, and because it's not a fun conversation, and you think, well, I'm perfectly fine. Once it's needed, then I know my kids will let me know or my grandkids will let me know. But can we just be honest? That's not how it works. And so when you are of a state of mind where you are able to make decisions that make sense, I would recommend that you make those decisions now and you do it with Ozarks elder law. That way, when the time comes, it's not going to be something that can just tear a family apart. OzarksElderlaw.com, 10 area locations, free consultation. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements, KSGF.com. So the CEO of NPR is warning that public broadcasting cuts could be a real risk to the public safety of the country. And so, everything that happens, people die, right? I mean, there's going to be millions of people who die because of this. I mean, at some point, folks, you've got to recognize so many of the stories that we were taught as children clearly are no longer taught, or were not taught to a segment of the population that are now adults. And the crying wolf thing, I mean, you can only say we're all going to die so many times before people quit listening to you. It loses its effectiveness. It's like, a couple that fights, and the first time one of the people, in the relationship calls the other one a name that might be considered over the line, and you just can't believe that's but after you do it for 10 years at one another, it becomes background noise. It loses its effectiveness. I mean, everything with these folks on the left is if they don't get your money, you're going to die. Now, this latest argument is apparently, according to the CEO of NPR, there is a segment of the population that only gets severe storm warnings from NPR. They don't know how else to get it elsewhere. They are unaware of every other radio station in their market. They are unaware of all of the television stations, of which the major networks are still free over the air. They don't have any sort of alerts that come to their cell phones. There's apparently a segment of the population that is completely 100% cut off from the rest of the world except for NPR. And where is it that some of these cuts that we're going to have to make some tough decisions here? Why is it they always start at the thing that is the most deadly? I mean, it's always, well, what are we going to cut here? Well, I guess we'll just stop sending out these alerts. We'll have no choice, and all these people are going to die. This is just so absurd. There's an article, CBS News, and they write, this is in the context of this argument that people are going to start dying because NPR is going to quit sending out weather alerts. And they write, the rescissions package comes on the heels of the devastating July 4th floods on Texas's Guadalupe River, which left more than 130 dead, and search efforts are still ongoing for more than 100 still accounted for. Since the tragedy, there have been questions about the efficiency of emergency alert systems, many of which rely on public broadcasting. So that's sort of a weird argument to make. If you're claiming the necessity of public radio existing to save lives by pointing out all of the people who lost their lives while the public radio component is at play here. That seems to negate the point you're trying to make. And I know some of this is just a difference in approach. The entitlement that some people have, this sense of entitlement to be kept, to be taken care of. Like, we don't know what we're going to do. Why don't you do what the rest of us do? We're just not going to be able to survive. Well, then maybe you shouldn't. You can't, on one hand, argue that you are so vital to the community, that so many people in the community rely on you, but then complain that you don't have enough community support in order to exist on your own without the taxpayers subsidizing you. It doesn't compute that way. I know a lot of the argument is made. In fact, the White House was asked about this particular claim that people are going to start dying because of this. And Caroline Leavitt, she starts listing off all the reasons that they are biased to the left. And everyone knows that they are. This is why people on the left like NPR. And I'm not saying that people who aren't on the left don't listen to it or can't listen to it. But I love these people on the left who run around. They're like, oh, they're not left-leaning. Really? Then why do you listen? Because we all know that the left does not listen to anything or watch anything unless it's left-leaning. If they were objective, you'd be calling for a boycott. Those are, to me, that is almost a distraction from the ultimate point here, and that is this idea that in every market, there's one radio station or one television station that doesn't have to make money on their own. That they don't have to do what the rest of us have to do. They don't have to come up with ideas on how to change if things aren't going well. Maybe, and Lord knows, when it came to COVID, normal radio stations that don't get handouts got hit really hard. A lot of advertisers did, because you had these different businesses that by government were forced to close. And so, one, they have no revenue coming in. But in addition to that, you certainly aren't going to advertise in order to get people to come to your establishment, which the government has forced you to shut down anyway. And so there were a lot of radio stations that were hit very, very, very hard. You adapt. And that's an extreme example, but that's called running a business. You provide a good or service that you believe that the community wants to the degree that you are going to be able to sustain yourself. And this it's this weird mindset. Instead of being embarrassed that they're not able to do that, they're indignant that you think that they should have to operate like every other radio or television station operation. I mean, you would, again, it's the difference in the approach that somebody takes in terms of, okay, I have a job to do. It is to make this a successful entity. I'm going to do that by providing goods and services to the community that are meaningful enough that it has a return on it. And there's that mindset, and then there's this other mindset that, well, no, you just need to, as government, take money from people and give it to me. And how dare you? How dare you expect us to operate like everyone else? I mean, I guess it makes sense because they are left-leaning individuals who operate under a sense of entitlement. You see it everywhere from this to so many in the WNBA, Stephen Colbert, CBS, all these individuals that just think because they exist, someone should subsidize them. Someone should give them money that they're not producing themselves. And I suppose culturally it's a fit for people on the left, mooching off others and expressing this sense of indignancy at anyone who says that you should operate just like the rest of us. For people that fancy themselves so intelligent, they have a very difficult time figuring this out. You know, and another thing about the NPR and PBS, and they keep talking about, well, you know, we are the ones who broadcast over the public airwaves, and that's why we're an exception. So do we. We utilize the public airwaves. We have to maintain a license. We have to provide a service to the community. And this is something that Sarah knows because she fills out the reports. I used to do it at a number of other stations, fill out reports showing here are the things that we've done in order to serve the government or to serve, you know, the community at large so that we are able to continue to keep our license. The only difference is NPR and PBS just think that they should have some of your money. By force. You know what it reminds me? It reminds me of the spoiled rich kid. It's almost like a Biden, maybe. And they have become so accustomed to being handed money that the moment someone says, yeah, maybe we should cut you off, they act as if you are doing something immoral to them. And it's that spoiled, entitled attitude. And to me, again, it has nothing to do with their left-wing bias. I mean, that is clearly a problem. And it has resulted in them, frankly, not doing the community the service that they're supposed to do. And this is a network, and Levitt pointed this out yesterday, that refused to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story. Well, that was real relevant news. It was real relevant news. And so here they are actually out of line with what their commitment is supposed to be. It's just that entitled. I'm glad I'm not that way. How high and mighty I am.
Ugh, these people.
Is it not crazy? The traction, the viral traction, this whole Coldplay thing.
I know.
I mean, just the different videos that are being made by people that are mimicking this whole deal. It is, I find it to be an interesting thing. Just why is it that certain things catch on, why others don't? I guess we also do love to see the visuals of people in uncomfortable position, to say the least. Now, this guy's out of his job, which, okay. Now, and I'm not going to spend a great deal of time talking about this, but here's what, if I am having an affair and I decide I'm going to go to a concert, and there is this kiss cam thing going on, guess what I'm not going to be doing at that moment? I'm not going to be draped over the person I'm having an affair with. The odds of that camera hitting you, yes, it might be 1 in 10,000, but is that really worth it? I mean, this isn't an argument on the way that they should have done it, but it's just crazy to me. It makes me feel like they were somewhat comfortable doing what they were doing. I just can't imagine, I don't know. Wouldn't you think if they're doing this cam and they're going around and
I'd be
they're like
"Ooh,
we're focusing
I don't
on
wanna be
people
on
here.
it."
Yeah, like, hey, maybe we should take the next 30 seconds and not be,
all snuggled
up with one another. It's just crazy. But here's the other thing too, and a lot of people are posting about, on one hand, people are chattering about this, and then you've got news stories about it, and you have all of these memes in which people are, sort of poking fun at the situation itself, and then they reflect on, there's a real family here, and, there's a wife, and there, is this family, and let's not forget that. But, and I don't need, these are just the things I think about. What if his wife is out there having an affair too? She just didn't, there's this automatic default to assuming that his wife is at home and she's making bread, just waiting for him to get back home, and she's and she may be. I have no idea, but I just find it amusing that or interesting. I shouldn't say amusing. I find it interesting that we just default to assuming that he has this. She might be thinking, oh man, I probably shouldn't say too awful much here because I've been, I've been going to Maroon 5 concerts with my side piece for years. You just don't know. Isn't it weird, these assumptions that are made?
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, anyway.
It's a whole hot mess.
It is a whole hot mess. Did you see Obama's a weirdo? This thing where he said that men need gay friends because they may have non-binary sons.
I saw that.
I'll play some of the audio of it coming up here. It may be in the next hour. This, to me, is just hilarious when you put it up against people like Obama in another setting talking about, now, how is it we can win men back? Yeah, stop being weirdos. I mean, just the stuff that these people talk about when they aren't, when they're just with their own, and they feel comfortable talking about things that they may not talk about out on the campaign trail in front of a mixed audience. And it's just, these people tried to say J.D. Vance was weird. They're just weird. They are oddball people. And not to mention the fact that we continue to get advice from either Michelle Obama or Barack Obama about how it is that you're supposed to be a father to sons when they don't even have any sons. Barack Obama's father was absent. He didn't even have a father figure. I don't even know what he's basing his assessment off of. But this, again, is the elitist perspective, and that is, I may have absolutely no experience whatsoever, but I'm going to be the ultimate authority to tell you how it is that you should raise your sons. Well, here's some good economic news. The odds of a U.S. recession have fallen to their lowest level ever recorded on Polymarket, dropping from 70% in late April to just 19% this week. The shift follows weeks of economic data indicating continued strength in consumer activity, according to Breitbart Business Digest. Quote, personal consumption expenditures rose 1.8% in the first quarter, beating forecast for 1.2%. Durable goods, services, and non-durables all contributed. Additionally, rising consumer spending, along with stable inflation and real income gains, hear that? Stable inflation and real income gains pointed to underlying momentum in the economy despite the first quarter GDP contraction. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick saying in March he did not expect a recession, attributing this to $1.3 trillion in new investment and President Trump's tariff policies. Quote, there's going to be no recession in America. You're going to see over the next 2 years the greatest set of growth coming from America as Americans. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expressed a similar view back in May, telling Congress the initial 0.3% GDP contraction may be revised upwards. Quote, there is nothing in the data that shows that we're in a recession, he remarked, citing a detailed analyst and stronger than expected drop growth. And what a far cry this is from not just the recession we were told we were going to get into, but due to tariffs, we were even hearing depression, Great Depression, collapse of the economy. And recession was like best case scenario. And we know this because the experts told us so. And because Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. And he doesn't know what he's doing. And there's so much chaos and confusion. And what sort of madman is this? It's almost as if he wants to destroy the country. And instead, the odds of the recession have fallen to their lowest level ever recorded on Polymarket. Yet again, the experts wrong, and Trump was right. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, for all of your home buying needs, your home selling needs. Before you even think about making a single upgrade to put it on the market, reach out to her first. Also, keep her in mind if you are going to be selling a home that maybe you grew up in, or maybe it was your parents' house. That is, a lot of people, they buy, sell homes. It's just upgrade, downgrade, move in the city, out of the city. Maybe their jobs require them to move around a lot, and they just don't like to rent. And so it becomes more of just another stop along the way. But for a lot of folks, the selling of a home is a very emotional thing. I mean, you are letting go of your childhood in many instances. And you can tell Emily Johnson really understands that based off of a couple of different reviews that people have provided who were going through that very situation. I think last week I'd read one of those reviews from someone who was having to sell her mother's home, and just what of a comfort it was having Emily Johnson guide them through that. So she's incredible at what she does, not just because she understands the marketplace, but she knows how much meaning can be in a home. And that's where you get so much more than you do with so many others when it comes to buying homes, selling homes. It's Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. So Barack Obama was on Michelle's IMO podcast, which stands for In My Opinion. And increasingly, have you ever been around someone, it could have been in college or the workplace or just anywhere, and they did a lot of talking, but you realize they're not really saying anything meaningful. They talking to hear themselves talk is a phrase that comes to mind when I hear some of what it is that Michelle Obama and Barack Obama have to talk about. It's like you're just talking to hear yourselves talk, I think. And one of the areas that they really appear to fancy themselves experts are on raising young boys, which is pretty interesting because they don't have any. And particularly, some of this audio is from Barack Obama talking about it from the context of a father, which, again, not a father, 2 sons, and his own father was absent in his life. So he didn't really have any sort of meaningful relationship with a father. Now, I'm not one who believes that simply because someone hasn't lived a certain experience that they can't have an opinion about it. But generally speaking, you get a sense of acknowledgement that, hey, listen, I'm not somebody that was raised by a father. I don't have sons of my own. But, I still think, as I observe as an outsider, for what it's worth, here's my opinion. But they just have this real sense of authority that they, you could tell they just really think they are providing a great public service to people by giving us their thoughts on these issues. And this is what I would describe as only weird from Barack Obama regarding fathers and sons.
And that's one of the things that I think a lot of times boys need is not just exposure to one guy.
Mm-hmm. One dad.
No matter how good the dad
is. He can't be everything.
He can't be everything. And then that boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
One of the most valuable things I learned as a guy was I had a gay professor in college at a time when openly gay folks still weren't outlawed, who became one of my favorite professors and was a great guy and would call me out when I started saying stuff that was ignorant. You need that to show empathy and kindness. And by the way, you need that person in your friend group so that if you then have a boy who's gay or non-binary or what have you, They have somebody that they can go, okay, I'm not alone in this.
What the hell?
I'm surprised that she let him on air because typically she just rips on him.
Well, yeah, this is the same podcast in which Michelle Obama had noted not too long ago that she never would have wanted a son.
That's right.
Because he would have just been like Barack, and she didn't want to have that. But it really, to me, is just talking to hear yourself talk, feeling as if you see this oftentimes if you watch some of these reality TV shows and you have some of these young people, they've never really done anything meaningful, but they're told how brilliant and how smart they are. And so they just ramble about things that have no substance. And when they're finished, you think, what did that even mean? Listening to him, it was almost like Kamala Harris. Jumping, it's just where to even begin with something like that. Now, I could break it all apart and, the undermining of the father, that perspective, which isn't anything that is uncommon. We know that when it comes to the left, the traditional family that creates a real strength and self-sufficiency is something that the left is against. This is all part of Marxism and getting rid of those traditional family values. So it isn't a surprise saying that, a son needs to have somebody help the son give a better perspective on a dad. It just, this whole approach. And there's just a number of areas, from the binary son to the professor to all of this, again, within like 90 seconds, these random jumbled thoughts. But to me, when I hear that ultimately, I'm like, this is why you have a problem with men. Because you're just talking about weird things. This is not normal conversation. This just oddball philosophy, and they just sit around and lecture people and tell them how they should live their lives in arenas, again, they have no experience themselves. This is a political party that has had to acknowledge that it has no understanding of men. And here, what are they doing? Giving advice on how men should deal with one another. Giving advice on how a father should treat a son and how a son should have another male figure in addition to the father. They have like this matrix of advice on male relationships and interaction when their elections demonstrate they have not a clue what goes on in the minds of the average guy, what is important to the average guy. And even young guys, even boys, it's just rich from a political party that doesn't even believe that there is a difference between a girl and a boy other than just whatever that person chooses, yet to have such distinct approaches when it comes to one of the chosen genders. These people are weirdos. I mean, they know they're being recorded, obviously. This is what happens when they're just talking amongst themselves, knowing that they're being recorded and that it is done for the purpose of broadcast. Can you imagine what the conversations are like when they're in the privacy of their own homes? I mean, it would probably just blow your mind. Traffic in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. An extreme heat warning is in effect this week for the entire listening area. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 95. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 75. And for your Tuesday and Wednesday, it'll be sunny and hot with a high near 96.
Sarah Myers.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Summer is here. It's hot. It's going to stay hot. And if your AC is not running the way it should, don't sweat it. Just reach out to Russell and the Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air team. From AC tune-ups to service repairs to new unit installs, they do it all. They won't push you or upsell you. They are very honest about the work that needs to be done whenever they come out to your home. I've used them for service repairs, and I had them recently upgrade my unit, and I couldn't be happier with the work that they've done out at my home. And they also offer an emergency service line, by the way, so if something happens outside of those normal business hours, you can still schedule a service. So if it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air today for all of your AC needs. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I look at just in the past week, I suppose, and NPR CEO pitching a fit because they may not have access to the same amount of taxpayer dollars that they have in the past. The discontinuation of Colbert's Late Show, and what currently is happening and what was on full display with the WNBA All-Star Game, in which they all unveiled these T-shirts saying that they should be paid more, that the left really does have this mindset that they should be rewarded for failing. Every one of these instances is an instance of a culture of the left, and in many instances, a person that is extremely on the left, who, even though they cost money, they do not make money for the people who pay them. As an individual, an institution, or a team, yet they indignantly claim that they are still not getting enough in some capacity or another. Now let's start with Colbert here. And the opening line of this Fox News story is just, again, highlighting, frankly, the absolute stupidity of some of these people on the left. And it says, a new report is putting a spotlight on the finances of The Late Show as critics speculate the CBS cancellation was a political move to silence its anti-Trump host Stephen Colbert. You could potentially, without being laughed out of the room, make this argument if in the world of entertainment and late-night talk show hosts, there was only one person that made fun of Donald Trump, and that person was removed from the airwaves. But in case you haven't noticed, everyone does that. Everyone does. when it comes to the late night, whether it's Stephen Colbert, it's The Daily Show, it is Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, Saturday Night Live, The View. I mean, just go, and not to mention CBS, ABC, NBC, all the nightly news they're all anti-Trump. You have the lunacy, and this really, it's brainwashing. I think we need to get beyond some of the politeness here. People who are posting, well, this is what happens in a dictatorship, that you start removing comedians who make fun of the leader. That is an idiotic position to take. Do you not see what every other one of these people out there do? They can't help but make fun of Trump. They can't help but call Trump Hitler. Do you have any idea how much of a failure Colbert is? What do you think his job is? This would be an interesting mental exercise for people who don't understand why it is that they are not going to renew his show, or that they're ending it in May, which, by the way, of all the people to call this out as BS, the claims that this is political, is Keith Olbermann. You can't find anyone that hates Trump more than Keith Olbermann. And Keith Olbermann said if this were political, he wouldn't be on, he would be gone immediately. So even, you have somebody that is as extreme and angry as Keith Olbermann noting that this is BS. But what do you think the job of Colbert is? I mean, which of course indicates part of the problem here. I mean, one after the other, Democrats just going on and on about how he's just the best there is. Outkick has a story. Virtue signaler Julia Louis-Dreyfus scolds CBS for firing Colbert. And what you have are all of these people on the left that are posting all of these different statements declaring that Stephen Colbert is the best in the business. The best at doing what? Not gathering up additional viewers. Now, he may be, oftentimes of the three networks, the top, but when late night is not what it was once upon. Greg Gutfeld on Fox News, his, quote, late night show oftentimes beats Colbert. What if you're going to declare that Stephen Colbert is the best at what he does? What is it that he does? It isn't make the company money. Is his job supposed to be to drive them into the ground financially? Listen, I don't have a problem with everyone, make whatever sort of money you want to. The show has been losing more than $40 million a year. And evidently they have like 250 staff members. And I think, he gets paid, he is said to be making between 15 and 20 million a year. That's a lot of money to pay someone to make you lose an additional 100 million per season. This is part of what kills me about the left is they rip on rich people as being greedy and not giving back to society, when there are a lot of extremely wealthy people that do much more for society than government could ever do. But then they rally behind someone that is costing, but that's not making money, not improving anyone's lives, and he's getting money hand over fist. Rachel Maddow is another example of this. She was working 1 day a week. I'm not sure what the money losses are at MSNBC during her particular time slot. I don't know if it's the same situation as Colbert. But, what is it with you people on the left that act as if rich people are horrible, that they don't give anything back, yet here you come to try to defend somebody like Stephen Colbert that is costing his employer $100 million a season? That is how much of a failure his show is, and the reason for that is because the ratings are down and advertisers are not willing to spend the amount of money that is necessary in order to actually make a profit. And on top of that, he gets $16 million? And he's supposed to be some sort of hero of the left? Isn't this everything that we're told the left is opposed to? Some rich, white, male, multimillionaire who doesn't even do most of his own show with a staff of 250 or however many people that they say, and doesn't even make a profit for his company. How much more of a failure can you be? I guess he's succeeded at getting away with it this long and has succeeded somehow of making people who claim that they are against the rich white guy rally to his aid. Now, you also have, at the same time that's going on, it's a similar situation with the WNBA, which culturally is to the left. Much like Stephen Colbert, they hemorrhage money. They only exist because of the NBA subsidizing them. And then they had the audacity during the All-Star game to all wear these shirts demanding that they get paid more. Or what? We're going to take a break. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447-KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. We're going to jump over to traffic here, and do want to remind you, though it is Monday, we will have a Heroes Breakfast already coming up this Friday at Scramblers when we broadcast live there from 6 to 9. Of course, we're there every Friday. We weren't there past Friday because I was on vacation, but we will be back there, and it will be a Heroes Breakfast. So if you're a veteran, come on out. Get yourself free breakfast. That thanks to a number of our incredible partners, Scramblers being one of them, Delta Roofing, Air Services, Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, Electrical, and the Warrior's Journey.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. An extreme heat warning is in effect this week for the entire listening area. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 95. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 75. And for your Tuesday and Wednesday, sunny and hot with a high near 96.
All right, so you have people on the left that are outraged because multimillionaire, white, rich guy Stephen Colbert is not going to continue to get handed millions and millions of dollars for failing at his job. Then you have the latest, this WNBA thing I've never seen that I can recall. Any collective group of individuals that are so desperately trying to destroy what potential is being given them. I find not only this whole thing that has been occurring within the WNBA on a number of different levels and just my place in it sort of interesting because I'm not a sports guy. I watch the Chiefs or a couple other NFL teams, but other than that, I don't really sit around and watch sports. I've never even watched an NBA game. Just never of an interest to me. But like a lot of people, you started hearing this stuff about Caitlin Clark and what difference is she going to make? And she won't turn things around or make the WNBA relevant. I shouldn't say turn things around, but just even make it relevant. Will people start watching? And for reasons I don't know, I'm not going to try to explain it. I watch those Indiana games. I think it was one weekend. I was probably home alone, and I thought, oh, this is on. Well, let me give it a watch. And for whatever reason, I kind of enjoyed it. So I suppose that I am, to some degree, the sort of person that they are hoping for, someone that wasn't in any way, shape, or form interested in the WNBA before, but or is at least following one team in particular. Although I'm not really a sports guy, so that puts me in a whole different categories. I don't know. And it was because of Caitlin, and you watch her compared to some of the others, and I do find that entertaining to watch. I do at the same time find it somewhat entertaining to watch the performance of Angel Reese, who in my completely non-sports minded assessment is not as talented as Caitlin Clark, yet watching desperately the left and pop culture try to make everybody accept her on the same level and pretend as if she has the same level of talent and pretend as if she, just as much as Caitlin Clark, is the reason that people are starting to pay attention when they did not once upon a time. And listen, we've seen some of these games where Caitlin Clark was injured and all of a sudden they practically had to give out tickets. I think one of the games they were selling them for $3 a piece and viewership just plummeted. So it's clear that if there is going to be a WNBA that is actually self-sustaining, it could be the beginnings of it because of Caitlin Clark drawing interest to the WNBA. Now, it's not there yet. And, in fact, there was a story in the New York Post, it was several months ago, and so it may be a little behind the curve when it comes to some of the different changes. And I know that they're right now negotiating with players for pay and so forth. But for the 2025 season, the WNBA is going to lose $40 million. $40 million. Now, that's less than the $50 million that it was expected. So, arguably, the Caitlin Clark phenomenon here has made a little bit of difference. But you're still talking about being $40 million in the hole. Starting in the 2026 season, the WNBA will get up to $2.2 billion over 11 years as part of a new basketball media contract. That means likely at least $100 million annual increase from what the WNBA currently makes from national media contracts, which is around $60 million. And so what they're hoping to do here is, with a lot of these different media contracts and so forth, is to really capitalize off the popularity of Caitlin Clark. And like, oh, look, she's hot now, so there's a premium on this to start at least getting closer to where it can be self-sustaining. But the fact of the matter is, the WNBA is not self-sustaining. You had this all-star game Saturday night. Caitlin Clark was not playing in it because of an injury. And at some point, all of the players, they revealed they were wearing, maybe they came out with the shirts on, that read, "Pay us what you owe us." Now, best I can tell, not only do they not owe you anything more than they are paying you, you owe them. You're costing them. The WNBPA president praised the players for using their platform. Quote, "I'm just so inspired by the amount of players that showed up, the engagement that was there. That's really what it's all about, because the more that happens, the more that we start to be able to get things done. I think today we're going to be able to use this conversation to start rolling the ball on things." Now, I think some of this is because they're recognizing, because of Caitlin Clark, and now you've got, there is a little bit of spreading, I think, into Sophie Cunningham, who also is with the Fever, and she's a pretty blonde, and she really had her jersey skyrocket a few weeks ago because she got into a physical altercation with players from another team because of how they were roughhousing on Caitlin Clark. And so you had the Caitlin Clark crowd out there. They're like, yes, finally someone's standing up for her, and that's really been a huge promotion to Sophie Cunningham's career at this point. But I got to tell you, as somebody that has become newly interested in watching this, the moment I see them come out on the court with shirts complaining that they aren't paid what they're owed when they actually cost the WNBA money, I'm like, it just puts, it's like, this righteous indignation, this sense that you are owed something that you haven't earned yet. And then, of course, the cherry on top of it all is that they all want to trash on the one person who could potentially make them relevant, and that's Caitlin Clark. And not just verbally, but physically as well. In fact, so Caitlin Clark wasn't playing, but she, like everyone else, wore a pay what you owe us shirt. Now, she, of course, like a lot of these others, they get, they talk about how little they're actually paid by the WNBA or the NBA. But some of them have millions and millions of dollars of endorsements. I mean, Caitlin Clark is one of these. So while they will complain that we're not making nearly enough money, they want you, I think, sometimes to believe that they live in some one-room apartment because they're only getting $38,000 a year from the WNBA or whatever it is. Meanwhile, they have multi-million-dollar contracts. Now, not all of them, obviously. Caitlin Clark, once again, being the exception to this. So Caitlin Clark, she's not playing, and she complies, and I don't know, maybe she was fully behind it, maybe to what level and what degree she was supportive of all of them getting together and essentially whining through their T-shirts that they weren't getting what they think that they deserved. She also wore one of the T-shirts. You know what she got for it? Here's an article. Kelsey Plum takes jab at Caitlin Clark in awkward presser moments after the game. During Plum, who I don't even know what team she plays for, because, again, my level of interest. During Plum's post-game presser, she oddly singled out Team Caitlin Clark for not being very present in Saturday morning's meeting when the players were planning the shirt demonstration. Plum saying, quote, not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that. That prompted Sabrina, another player, who was a member of Team Clark, to make a bemused expression and then roll her eyes, saying that really needed to be mentioned. This cattiness, this spoiled sense of entitlement, and the one person here who is responsible for the fact that there's even a conversation, that there are even eyeballs to the level that there are, observing them protesting with these T-shirts, they decide to dunk on. You know, there's been so much, and I've mentioned this in the few times that I've talked about this, and a lot of focus on the race angle here and how much of this is because she's white. I think that may come. I think that there is a component in there that almost makes some of the players feel as if they are entitled to treat her poorly because she's white. But even if she weren't, I think that, and I've said this before, and a lot of people may not like it, women and men are just different. And if you have a bunch of men in a league that have desperately been trying to get some attention and some superstar comes along, they all want to be that guy's best friend. They all want to be right there with him. They want to be celebrating him, but women just operate a bit differently. And here they are all clawing at each other and just self-destructing this gift that has been given them. And for people that want to claim men and women are the same, there aren't really any true differences. I think this is a demonstration of it. I also think, I've noted this before, that there's a reason there's no Real Husbands of Orange County shows out there on reality TV, that they're all Real Housewives shows. And for whatever reason, when it comes to the WNBA, there just is this lack of desire to point out the female component here. That, you know, I'm a misogynist, I guess. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. And now a moment with Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. If it's been a long time since you've had your roof inspected, now is the time to do it, especially with all of the storms that we've had over the last several months. And I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections, and they are very, very thorough. They check around your vents, your chimney, your skylights, your gutters, and they even do an attic inspection to check your decking. They also work with you through that insurance process process, so everything gets covered and you just don't have to stress. And they also offer discounts for our military and first responders on new roof installs. So if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out to your home, make sure to just reach out to Josh today. You can find all their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
All right, so there is this, which seems to have already been debunked to some degree, or at least noted that there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever, that this whole Wall Street Journal report that clearly was written to bring Trump into the Epstein fray. And so they write this story about how for his 50th birthday party, he got birthday cards from people, and one of them was Donald Trump. Now, I think we all know if they didn't have the Donald Trump sent him a birthday card angle, that wouldn't even, why would this be a story? A guy got birthday cards for his birthday? Oh, well, and some of them were a bit blue in tone. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, Town Hall has looked into this, and they noted that the same people involved in this Wall Street Journal story were the same media operatives who were part of the Russian collusion hoax. The article was co-authored by reporters with ties to Maine Justice, which is a publication founded Mark Jacoby, wife of Glenn Simpson, who's the founder of Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS is the outfit that paid for that fake dossier. And here you have these same folks that are peddling some story that Donald Trump sent a birthday card to Epstein for his 50th birthday. Oh, and it had coded messages in it that clearly indicate that Donald Trump rapes children, because that's, of course, exactly what one would do, wouldn't they? These people, just the grasping at things that, even if you hate the person that is the subject matter, it doesn't make sense. So this whole story, it was a leather-bound book containing, among other things, a doodle of a naked woman's body framing an odd typewritten note, both supposedly penned by Trump and addressed to convicted child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein back in 2003. The Journal called the letter an illustration's body and described the signature as a squiggly Donald below the drawing's waist, mimicking pubic hair. Trump told the Journal that the note, included in a book allegedly compiled for Epstein's 50th birthday, was fraudulent, saying, "I never wrote a picture in my life. I don't draw pictures of women. It's not my language. It's not my words." Now, he's not the only one, apparently, that was approached about this, the allegations of, like, a card to Epstein. Alan Dershowitz happened to also be one of the individuals. Now, he, in this whole thing, was one that in the beginning his name leaked out as potentially being involved, and he was leading the charge to have every and all information involving him released to the public because he didn't do anything. And so he's very quick to speak on these issues and these matters, and he is one who has said that there is a lot of information, but it's not some list that is being held by the Department of Justice. You've got numerous judges out there who put seals on this stuff so that it cannot be talked about. Now, the Trump administration is going to court to try to have that undone. But regarding this particular Wall Street Journal story, he was asked about it and what he says can be utilized and why he believes he may be called to testify in this matter in terms of the lawsuit, because Trump's saying he's filing a lawsuit because of this malicious story, that the malice is the component here that is significant.
Well, I'll probably be called as a witness in the case because they also called me and they said that you wrote him a letter with a mock cover of Vanity Fair. And I said, I may have, I don't remember, this was 23 years ago. Just send me a copy of the letter with my signature and I'll tell you whether it was authentic or not. And they said they couldn't do it. And so they published the story without authenticating it with me. And that will be an important point in trying to prove malice. So I suspect I will be a witness if this case ever goes to trial.
Now, this is an important step when it comes to what is supposed to be journalism. If you are going to print an allegation against someone that involves evidence that you claim that you have, and you ask them about that evidence, and they say, well, I don't know, let me see it, and then I can give you, give you my thoughts on it. Like he said, I don't remember if I sent the guy 23 years ago a birthday card or not. Let me see it. And they wouldn't do it. Why would you not do that? Why would you, if you are looking for some sort of feedback, if you're doing honest journalistic work, and he was called for the purposes of commenting on this, and so he said, well, I need to see it in order to be able to comment, and they're like, no, and they published the story anyway. Trump is calling for the release of all pertinent Epstein documents following this article. There's a good chance that Democrats are going to have a hand in the unraveling of their attempt to get the narrative switched to Trump is trying to cover something up. Because Trump, I think for a number of reasons, has seen some of this as a distraction. I don't agree that it's a distraction that needs to go away, and we've talked about that. I also, though, believe that it isn't, or has it ever been, reasonable to think that there's like this official list that Epstein put people on blackmailing, but instead listings of individuals and names in different jurisdictions, as Horowitz has said here, or Dershowitz has said, that are under seal. I mean, that just seems reasonable, and that's what, in fact, the DOJ is trying to get revealed here to the general public. I think that the Democrats may have made a bit of a mistake in seeing the way that Trump tried to dismiss this as he was aggravated a few weeks ago, not the card story, but the whole issue of no official list, and was dismissive to the reporter, sort of scolding the reporter, why are you talking about this guy when there's so much more important stuff going on? Thought, here's an opportunity for us to try to make this an issue, when it could have potentially just gone away to some degree. But Trump is one that if you take a swing at him, he does not just take it lying down. And so this has apparently revived this this fire in his belly to really fight back against this stuff. And that may not work out so well for the Democrats. I hesitate in this card thing that supposedly came from Trump to Epstein to hang your hat too much on, well, it probably doesn't even exist, because it's a birthday card from 23 years ago. This was just, first off, the card itself, even if it was something that doesn't seem like something Trump has ever written before, but did, what that means that he's a child rapist, the leaps that are expected to be taken here. But aside from that, let's just not forget, these are all the same people who told us that there was a secret videotape of Donald Trump urinating on a mattress with hookers in Moscow. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I will talk with you tomorrow.